For spine-chilling tales of the sinister, discover the cursed, haunted, and unexplained horrors. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows over the quiet suburban neighborhood where Sarah Mercer had recently settled down. The whispers of danger echoed through the streets, despite the facade of safety. Every time she walked by the abandoned school, a chill pinched at her spine, as if the crumbling bricks beckoned her closer, promising secrets hidden in the shadows. As a meticulous mom juggling 2 part-time jobs, Sarah found solace in the friendly faces of her new neighbors. Friends waved to her from trimmed lawns as she rushed to pick up her kids from soccer practice. But beneath the pleasant smiles and perfectly painted fences, a darkness lurked. Doubt crept into her mind like a thief in the night. Was her husband's late-night work really just work? Or was there something more sinister? Then came that fateful evening. Alone at home with the kids, she heard unsettling noises, scraping, scratching coming from the abandoned school. Her heart raced, hammering against her ribcage like a wild bird desperate for freedom. Rationality battled intuition, but maternal instincts ignited a fire. She had to check it out. Stepping cautiously through the overgrown grass, Sarah felt the air grow colder. As she approached the dilapidated structure, a flicker of movement caught her eye. The shadows danced as if alive, and her breath quickened. Inside, the floor creaked underfoot, each step resonating through the hall like a war drum. That's when she found them, documents buried beneath the damaged floorboards, barely legible but sending a shiver down her spine. Histories of missing children, old newspaper clippings detailing generations of unexplained disappearances. A curse, it said. Something sinister clutching the town in its icy grip. Panic set in, tightening around her throat. The normalcy of her life began to fray. Each night, her children woke screaming, claiming they heard whispers. The shadows that had once felt cozy now taunted her, a spectral parade through the halls of her home. Was it her imagination, or had the neighborhood truly become a web of horrors? Her paranoia peaked as she noticed their neighbor, Mr. Clay, the friendly one who never missed a chance to lend a helping hand. He stared a little too long, watched a little too closely. Was he merely concerned or keeping a watchful eye? Dread slithered through her veins as dark questions coiled around her thoughts. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Haunted by whispers and shadowy figures in the night, Sarah's anxiety escalated. She turned to the local authorities, desperate for help, only to receive dismissive shrugs and indifferent glances. Just folklore, they said, nothing to worry about. Yet, the whispers grew louder, drowning out the mundane sounds of suburban life. Just as Sarah vowed to confront Mr. Clay, the house plunged into darkness, the lights flickered ominously as if warning her. A metallic tang filled her nostrils, panic blooming in her chest as her children screamed from the upstairs bedroom. "Mom, they're here." A promise of terror loomed large. Who or what was at their door? What deep-seated horror awaited her family in the heart of their supposed sanctuary? The air was thick with dread. As Sarah raced up the stairs, every creak of the wooden stairs echoed in her ears, a horrific reminder of her solitude. She reached the children's room, flinging the door open. Her kids huddled together under the bed, eyes wide with terror, pointing at the darkness beyond. "Mom, they're coming!" they cried. But what could they see that she couldn't? The night enveloped the space around them like a living thing, suffocating and thick. Tension gripped her throat as she scanned the room, nerves flickering like a failing bulb. The windows were boarded with flimsy panes, casting the room in deep shadows. "Shoo, it's okay," she whispered, trying to instill calm in the chaos. But her voice trembled, betraying her fear. She knelt down, peering beneath the bed. The darkness was overwhelming, a heavy blanket, but with trembling hands, she shoved it aside. Nothing but silence greeted her. Yet the whispers remained, creeping into their minds, curling wickedly, twisting the fibers of reality. Sarah, her eldest, whispered, voice quaking, eyes haunting. "What's there?" "I feel them." Suddenly, lights flashed in the distance, a headlight cutting through the murky gloom outside. Sarah sprinted to the window, heart racing as she pressed her face against the cold glass. Mr. Clay's truck? No, it belonged to another neighbor, someone she didn't quite know. Panic mixed with intrigue. Would he help, or was he just another piece in this puzzle of growing despair? Behind her, the kid's soft whimpers morphed into sharp cries. She turned quickly. A murky shadow flickered in the corner. It was subtle, but the shape seemed distinctly human. Her own body froze as dread spilled into her veins like ice. "Sarah!" The whisper crawled into her ears, soft but insistent, laced with malice. The figure moved closer, featureless and dark, with fingers stretched toward her children. Instinct kicked in. "Get away from them!" she screamed, lunging forward. But as she reached out, the shadow dissolved, melding into the wall, leaving nothing but a lingering chill. She could feel the air growing oppressive. Each breath came harder, like dragging a weight through murky water. Her phone buzzed violently on the dresser, breaking the spell of terror. Trembling, she snatched it up, nearly dropping it when she saw the number. It was her husband. Skipping the pleasantries, she answered sharply. "Where are you? The kids need you. I can't handle this alone." But he didn't reply immediately. There was a rustling on the other end. "Sarah, don't come to the school." "Why not?" she demanded, chest heaving. "What's happening?" He hesitated. "It's not safe. You need to." The connection cut like a knife, plunging her back into a deafening silence. Instinct kicked in. She had to get her kids out. She fumbled for the door, leading her children by the hands. But as she turned, time paused. The shadows morphed, stretching and twisting into grotesque figures that blocked their pathway. Hollow eyes, desolate mouths, waiting. Desperation clawed at her throat. "No!" she shouted, shoving the first shadow aside, but it felt like pushing against a wall of stone. Moments spun into eternity, uncertainty twirling in the air. Just before she succumbed to panic, everything went dark. "Mom?" Her youngest's small voice quivered, darkness choking the room once more. Just as quickly as the light faded, a piercing shriek erupted from below. It blasted through the silence, followed by an eerie stillness. Was it a neighbor? Or had someone else been taken? The chill deepened, wrapping around Sarah like a noose. The whispers crescendoed, surrounding them once more. This time, they weren't just words, they were a promise of something sinister. What could she do? Where could she go? With a heart pounding and a determination fueled by fear, she felt a choice clawing its way to the surface. One path led to escape, another could uncover the truth. But truth could be more terrifying than she ever imagined. What would she risk to uncover what lurked both in the school and the shadows of her own life? The darkness clung to them like a coating of ice, and Sarah's resolve felt fragile as she blinked against it. She could almost hear the whispers gaining strength, bubbling up from the floorboards, thickening the shadows that surrounded her and her children. Each shriek from below crept into her mind, tearing her focus apart. It was chaos, the walls themselves seemed to shudder with dread. "Mom, please," her youngest whimpered, gripping her hand tightly. "Stay close," she whispered fiercely, heart thudding. They couldn't remain frozen in this nightmare. She pulled her kids toward the door, but the shadows pulsed before them, greedy limbs stretching like dark tendrils eager to seize them. "Go!" Sarah shouted to her children, shoving them past her. "Run down the hall." They dashed forward, but she felt part of her being anchored in that room, an invisible bond threatening to drag her back into the void. She turned her head slightly, and that S when she saw it, an outline carved from nothingness, its grin wide and gaping. It was watching her. Sarah, it spoke in a voice that twisted her own name like a knife, its inflection haunting. Then, before she could react, it lunged, disrupting the air with a palpable force. "Mom, come on!" her oldest pleaded, dragging her from her stupor, yanking her back into motion. Just as they broke through the doorway and into the hallway, everything around them trembled. The shadows seemed to bleed into the walls, reforming, swirling as if alive. Sarah could hear soft laughter slicing through the air, echoing the fears she desperately tried to suppress. The staircase loomed ahead, descending into darkness. "We need to get to the front door," she said, her voice trembling. "Mom, what is happening?" her daughter asked, panic clawing at her words. "I don't know," Sarah breathed, steeling herself. "But we can't stop. We can't let them take us too." As they hurried down the stairs, Sarah's thoughts flickered through memories of endless summer nights spent outside, the stars twinkling over their heads, now replaced by an oppressive void. A chill flared as they reached the bottom of the stairs, and suddenly, the front door burst open, a flood of cold air pouring in like the breath of the abyss. "Mom!" the kids cried, their voices colliding with the sudden realization that someone or something stood in the doorway. A figure, indistinct and shrouded in shadow, loomed over them. It radiated a sense of awareness that sent tremors through Sarah's body. They were trapped. Dark energy crackled around them, each breath an exertion against the weight of impending dread. "Turn back," Sarah, the figure whispered softly, its tone reminiscent of a long-lost friend luring her to familiar places. "Your family will not escape this night." With a surge of fury, she lunged toward it. Instead of impact, her body passed through as if the air was thick fog. The figure flickered, momentarily revealing a distorted face, eyes sunken but glowing with unnatural fire. "No!" Sarah screamed, grasping for her children, but they were too far away, rooted to the floor in shock. She felt a cold hand on her shoulder, and it tightened, an iron grip of despair. "Come home," it breathed, and the world around her warped, blurring as if reality were unraveling. The walls echoed with laughter, but something more was layered beneath the familiarity of their own school songs. A pain pierced through Sarah. The school. Had it called out to her? The laughter grew wider, echoing deeper in her brain, taunting the memories of classrooms and playgrounds, and the voices of long-gone friends and lost moments. Time slipped through her fingers as the shadows danced. Sarah felt her grasp on reality weakening. But a sudden bolt of clarity hit her, the choice. She had to make a choice. Then the floor cracked beneath them, a fissure splitting the room as darkness began to swirl into the widening gap. The children gasped. "Let us find a way out," she urged, pushing them back, but the darkness had other plans. The figure retreated, pulling shadows with it, but it whispered promises of release and comfort. Sarah felt her heart racing, droplets of sweat forming upon her brow. "It's a trick," she yelled to her children. "We have to move before it's too late." They turned back to the hall, but now the hallway stretched impossibly before them. Stacked doors appeared, each beckoning with whispers of sweet memories, each promising safety laced with horror. Which door, if any, would lead them to safety? As that thought clamped down, icy tendrils of darkness gripped tighter, forcing them to confront not just the lurking shadows, but the shadows within themselves. "Choose wisely," the figure breathed from the growing void, a grin widening across its face. What would Sarah choose to save her family from a destiny steeped in despair? Would she gamble on the wrong door, or could she expose the darkness lurking even closer? Time was slipping. And shadows were waiting. The hallway swallowed them whole, the air vibrating with tension as all the doors seemed to hum, each one a dark temptation. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, the beat echoing in her ears, drowning out the whispers of despair that clawed at her sanity. "Mom, I'm scared." Her youngest whimpered, his voice small against the thundering dread. I know, but we have to pick a door. She urged, forcing her feet to move despite the oppressive weight around them. The lights flickered, casting ominous shadows that danced and twisted against the walls. Each movement felt like a warning. Sarah's eyes darted from door to door. Some were cracked open, revealing glimpses of sickening green light or swirling mist, while others seemed solid but were draped in darkness so thick it felt tangible. Which one, Mom? Her oldest asked, eyes wide with fear, darting nervously from one door to the next. Let us try. Sarah hesitated. A door with a faint glow caught her eye, the wooden surface warped yet somehow warm. It seemed inviting, promising warmth in the frozen terror that surrounded them. Mom! The one with the light. The older child pointed, hope glimmering in their expression. Okay, but stay close. Sarah commanded, her voice steady despite the churning dread in her gut. Drawing in a breath, she pushed the door open. It creaked loudly, echoing unnaturally in the hollow space as they stepped through. The light inside was harsh and buzzing, illuminating a room filled with discarded toys and broken furniture. Look, it's our old playroom. The little one exclaimed, joy cutting through the terror momentarily. Her heart sank. The past was a double-edged sword, a bittersweet reminder of safety twisted now by shadows. A flicker of warmth lured her in, but the laughter it was too much. The laughter that echoed here didn't belong to them but twisted with that of long-gone children. Stay alert. Sarah warned, scanning the room. The nostalgia turned to ice in her veins as blinds swayed, casting eerie stripes of shadow across the floor like fingers reaching out. Mom, her oldest whispered, voice laced with fear. What if we're not alone? Before Sarah could reply, the door creaked violently behind them, slamming shut. Panic clawed at her throat, she whirled around, their escape sealed. Let us look around. She urged, forcing her legs to move forward, trembling. We can't let it trap us here. They scanned the room, and Sarah felt every toy's gaze upon them, those innocent faces now grinning with something wicked beneath their painted smiles. Mom, what's happening? The little one trembled, eyes wide as he clutched a frayed teddy bear. Just stay close, her voice faltered as the shadows around them coiled tighter. From the corner of her eye, something moved. A shadow disentangled from the wall, slithering across the floor, growing larger and more defined. A figure formed, not the previous elusive specter but a grotesque silhouette of a child. Its mouth stretched wide, disjointed and wrong, showcasing teeth sharper than any human could bear. Join us. It squealed, a chorus of voices layered beneath, echoing the laughter from outside doors. It's so much fun and oh! Sarah shouted, shoving her children behind her, fists clenched in defiance. The figure lunged, and the room breathed a breath of icy dread. Sarah scanned wildly, reality distorting as she felt icy fingers tracing against her back. Mom! Her oldest cried, eyes wide with terror as the figure advanced. Find something! Sarah screamed, searching desperately. She spotted a broken wooden toy sword, the only weapon against an unnatural nightmare. Grab that! She shouted, hoping it would hold some power against the dark. As her child lunged for it, the air crackled with the energy of encroaching shadows, the whispers intensifying, drowning out all rational thought. Time stretched, and Sarah realized the impending danger was not just from the shadow child, but the very room itself. Everything was a trap, pulling them deeper into a pit that threatened their existence. Run! Move! She barked, her voice sharp as glass. But at that moment, another door at the far end of the playroom flew open, a surge of darkness spilling from it. A figure appeared, forceful and shimmering with an unnatural light. Sarah froze, uncertainty flooding her mind. Choose now. It commanded, eyes glinting with something ancient and unfathomable. Which door would they dare enter? Or, has the darkness already claimed them? As the room darkened once more, the shadow child closed in, its laughter echoing like a nightmare waiting to consume them. Time was slipping. And only a choice remained. "Mom, it's coming!" Her oldest screamed, clutching the toy sword, his face as pale as the moonlight spilling through the cracked window. Sarah's heart raced, pounding in tandem with the footsteps echoing in her mind. The shadow child, its eyes glimmering with malevolence, advanced with a chilling grace. The air hummed with danger, thick and suffocating, as if the very walls were closing in around them. "Choose." The glowing figure commanded again, its voice like a distant storm, crashing against jagged rocks of fate. "You must choose or become one with the darkness." "Mom, please." The youngest whimpered, clutching Sarah's side. Her resolve wavered as she saw terror reflected in her children's eyes. They needed safety, but how could she lead them into another trap? The other door beckoned, light pouring through the frame like a welcoming hand, yet she felt the weight of the unknown. Fight or flight? The shadow child erupted into a fit of laughter, the sound striking her ears like shards of glass, splintering her thoughts into chaos. "Which one, which one?" she whispered, mind racing. The broken furniture from the room felt alive with malice, watching her, waiting with a hungry anticipation. "Mom!" Her oldest shouted, his voice breaking with fear as the figure lunged. "Run!" Sarah cried, shoving her children ahead of her. They barreled toward the door with the warm glow, her hand instinctively reaching for the knob. It felt hot against her palm, pulsing like a heartbeat. With a forceful twist, she flung the door open, and they tumbled into an abyss of swirling colors, the world fracturing around them like a glass mirror shattering into countless pieces. They landed in a dark, twisted landscape, a warped version of their backyard. The sun hung low, casting eerie shadows over the familiar grass, but the swings creaked as if burdened with sorrow. "What is this place?" Her youngest whimpered, looking up at Sarah with wide eyes. "I don't know," Sarah admitted, dread curling in her stomach. "But we can't stay here." Just ahead, a figure emerged. It was a woman, tall and slender, her dress flowing like a dark river, hair cascading like shadowy tendrils. She turned slowly, revealing eyes emptied of light. "Lost children," she cooed, voice dripping with a deceptive sweetness. "You found your way to my domain. Mom, let us go back." The oldest urged, pulling at her sleeve. "No." The woman's gaze locked onto Sarah's, an alluring pull like magnets. "You must stay, you chose this." Ballast weighed down Sarah's limbs. The shadows danced around the woman, sometimes taking form, yielding glimpses of smiling faces like mirrors reflecting her children, yet twisted. She understood, these weren't just shadows, they were the lost, the forgotten. "Let us go." Sarah shouted, breaking free of the enchantment. The cold claw of despair bit at her heart. She had to protect her kids. They were not toys to be warped in someone else's game. The woman smiled wider, revealing teeth too sharp to be human. "There are no escapes, dear. Only paths to darkness." "No." Sarah's scream rang out, echoing in tandem with the whispers of the shadow children, their laughter a cacophony that clawed at her sanity. Around them, the realm shifted, reality folding like paper, layers of darkness spilling over and mingling with the light. "Mom!" Her youngest cried, eyes brimming with tears. "What do we do?" Just then, the ground trembled, fissures opening like hungry mouths, pulling at her feet. The choice loomed again, either succumb to the shadows around them or fight to find another path. "We have to run," Sarah shouted, urgency fueling her steps as she grabbed her children's hands. Together, they dashed toward a dimly lit path leading deeper into the abyss, not knowing what awaited, the possibility of new horrors or a flicker of hope. But the woman's laughter followed them, lingering like a dark omen. "You can't escape." And then came the rumbling, the whispers stirred like a storm. As they rounded a corner, another being blocked their way, this one even darker than the last. It extended a bony finger, beckoning them into the shadow. "Come closer, little ones," it rasped. There was no turning back now. There was only one question left hanging in the thick, suffocating air: would they keep running or step into the unknown? In that very moment, shadows swallowed the horizon, demanding an answer with darkness closing in. The darkness thickened like a suffocating fog, wrapping around Sarah and her children as they skidded to a halt. The figure before them was an entity of pure night, its presence heavy and oppressive. The air crackled with malevolence, a palpable force drawing them in. "Step closer, it is safer here," the shadow thing hissed, its voice slithering through the air. The bony finger waggled, beckoning seductively, though each movement felt like a punch to Sarah's gut. "No!" she shouted, pulling her children tightly to her. "We're not going with you." As if reacting to her defiance, the ground quaked, sending vibrations through their feet. Tendrils of shadow reached for them, slithering across the ground like hungry snakes. Sarah felt her heart hammering against her ribs, adrenaline surging through her veins. She couldn't let them take her children. "Not now. Look!" Her oldest cried, pointing to a flicker of light shimmering in the distance, a firefly trapped in a cloak of dusk. "We have to get to that light. Follow me." Sarah shouted, launching into a sprint toward the glimmer, dragging her kids behind her. The shadows screeched, their laughter warping into a dissonant melody that scraped against her sanity. With every step, the darkness intensified. The towering trees morphed into terrifying silhouettes, their branches twisting impossibly, stretching out as if to ensnare them. They didn't just block the light, they hunted it. "Mom!" her youngest gasped, glancing back at the swelling shadows. The thing's bony finger pointed again, now sharpened like a blade of shadow. "It's coming. Faster!" Sarah urged, dread twisting her stomach as they pushed forward. The light flickered, drawing her like a moth to a flame, a wrong choice or a ray of hope. The shadows lunged, closing the distance with supernatural speed. She could feel the icy breath of the entity behind them, almost tasting the desperation in the air. "You must join us!" it shrieked, the sound resonating within her skull. "Embrace the darkness." "Never!" Sarah barked, channeling every ounce of strength as they raced toward the unreachable light. It shimmered just ahead, a beacon that danced tauntingly, playing hide and seek within the intertwined limbs of the trees. "Just a bit further." Her oldest yelled, determination bubbling through his fear. The shadows snarled, the ground beneath them stuttered, cracks splintering like an ancient tree. They felt the sinister pulse of the darkness, an urgent reminder of the fate that awaited if they faltered. But Sarah pressed on, refusing to give in. They barreled forward, limbs aching, hearts pounding. The light flared, illuminating the darkness just long enough for Sarah to see what lay beyond a portal, a shimmering rift in reality, promising escape. With one final surge, they leapt toward it, the ground gave way beneath them, shadows snapping at their heels. "Mom!" her youngest screamed, his grip slipping. "No!" Sarah cried out, twisting to grab his hand, yanking him back just in the nick of time. As they dove through the portal, she felt the icy tendrils clawing at her, just grazing her ankle. They tumbled through a whirlwind of colors and sounds, landing hard on a cool surface. Panting, they opened their eyes to a scene that sent chills down Sarah's spine. They were back in their living room. But everything was wrong. The air was still, unnaturally so, and shadows roamed freely across the walls, flickering and morphing into malicious forms. In the corner, a figure stood, the woman from before, her grin stretching wider, teeth gleaming like knives. "Welcome home," she whispered, voice drenched in deception. All hope drained away like a candle snuffed out. It seemed they had escaped the abyss only to walk into a new trap. "Run!" Sarah gripped her children tightly, heart racing anew as she surveyed their surroundings. There was no chance to breathe, no moment of safety. This place was still a maze of shadows and uncertainty. But before she could dash toward the door, a chorus of whispers filled the room, echoing from every corner. You cannot escape your choice. It has just begun. In that moment, shadows coalesced, swirling around her, thick and suffocating, as she fought to keep her kids close. Another choice loomed, one that promised deeper horrors or perhaps a slim chance of survival. What path would lead them to freedom? Was there hope lurking in this new haze of despair? The shadows writhed and slid along the walls, feeding off the fear that had erupted in the room. Sarah's heart thundered, drowning out the persistent whispers that echoed like a bad dream. We need to find a way out. She screamed, panicking as the oppressive air pressed down on them. The children looked up, their faces pale and eyes wide with terror. Where do we go, Mom? Her oldest asked, his voice trembling. The shadows flickered and danced, as if they enjoyed their distress, the corners of the room darkening ominously. Maybe the back door. She stammered, pointing with a shaky hand, praying it would lead to safety. Together, they bolted, racing across the room, but each step reverberated with an unsettling squelch, like sinking into a mushy bog. The shadows pressed closer, nearly enveloping them. Just as they reached the doorway, a cold wind rushed through, slamming it shut with a deafening thud. The sound echoed, mocking their desperation as the light dimmed further. The woman in the corner laughed softly, an unsettling sound that filled the air like thick smoke. You think you can escape so easily? She taunted, taking a step forward, the shadows bending to her will. Sarah twisted around, scanning for another option. In the center of the room, a bay window loomed, its glass clouded and murky, like the surface of a murky pond. We should try to break the window. She gasped, adrenaline surging again. No. Her youngest squeaked, clinging tightly to her. What if it's worse outside? The devil you know, Sarah muttered, grappling with the shadows that roared to life around her. It can't be worse than this. With a deep breath, she charged toward the window. The sharp sound of crunching glass echoed in the room, shattering the moment of stillness. Shards fell like rain, glinting like tiny stars as they hit the floor. But suddenly, dozens of shadows skittered forth to block her path. Tendrils lashed out, wrapping around her wrists, squeezing tighter with an otherworldly force, draining her strength. Mom! The kids yelled, reaching out toward her as their mother struggled. Get to the kitchen. She shouted, voice hoarse. They hesitated only for a moment, before racing away as their mother's voice cut through the chaos. Sarah managed to pull her wrists free, but more shadows swirled now, hissing and scratching like a furious wind. The woman's laughter was now a chilling song, thick with malice. You can't hide from your fate. You brought them here with your choices. Not if I have any say in it, Sarah hissed, her determination roaring back as she tore toward the open door that led to the hall. The shadows howled in anger, chasing her down the corridor like a pack of feral beasts, clawing at her legs. Heart racing, she skidded around the corner, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. What choice had she made to bring this upon them? How could she have been so naive? There was no time for reflection, just survival. In the kitchen, she spotted a knife on the countertop, its blade gleamed against the dim light. Kids! She yelled, urgency flooding her voice. Stay close. As they entered the kitchen, the shadows coiled tighter around the doorway, almost solid. Sarah gripped the knife, feeling its cold metal in her palm. We're not going down without a fight. The darkness erupted in fury, lashing toward them, desperate to snatch them back. Sarah raised the knife, heart pounding in sync with the chaos around her. Get back! She screamed, surging forward. But just as she made her stand, the floor beneath them began to tremble. Cracks snaked out like veins, the house groaning as if it were alive, a monster awakening beneath them. The children cried out, clutching each other. The shadows twisted, their laughter morphing into piercing screams as the house suddenly felt less like a refuge and more like a tomb. And then, through the cacophony, Sarah heard it, a new voice, lighter and sweeter, slipping through the tumult. Help, help us! Hope and dread twisted together in her chest. Who was calling? What darkness awaited them if they chose to listen? Mom? Her oldest. Whispered, his eyes darting between the shadows. What do we do now? They stood at the edge of a terrifying decision, one that could seal their fate forever. The air crackled with tension, a suffocating blend of fear and uncertainty. Sarah glanced at her children, their wide eyes reflecting her own terror. Time felt suspended, every heartbeat a drum revealing their impending doom. The shadows whispered again, a low and hissing sound that sent chills up her spine. Mom, that voice, it sounds like someone needs help. Her oldest pleaded, desperation sharpening his tone. No, no, I can't take that chance, Sarah breathed, her hands tightening on the knife. The children looked between her and the dark doorway, uncertainty mingling with their innate urge to comfort. We have to push forward. She insisted, but doubt gnawed at her. As if in reply, the house quaked again, the walls creaking and sighing like an ancient beast waking from a long slumber. Is it the house? Or something else? She thought, panic crawling along her skin. Suddenly, the call echoed again, clear as a bell, but tinted with desperation. Please. Help me. I can't hold on much longer. The children shivered, inching closer to their mother. It's a trap, isn't it? Sarah whispered, half to herself, but her heart ached to respond. Who was it? How could they ignore a plea for help? But what if it led them deeper into the claws of the shadows? The shadows seemed to sense her hesitation, swirling around the kitchen like a tangible fog, trying to whisper doubt into her mind. Stay here, we will protect you, they hissed, their voices weaving through the air like smoke. Fight it, Sarah. She chided herself. You can't trust the darkness. She took a deep breath, glancing at her children again. We can't let this consume us, she asserted, stepping backward, knife held firmly. But the crack in the floor expanded suddenly, splintering widely, revealing a swirling black void beneath them, a passage to an unspeakable horror. They were running out of time. A pair of ethereal hands seemed to reach through the dark, clawing for the edges, trying to pull themselves free. Is it real? Her son wondered aloud, voice trembling. What if we're leaving someone behind? No. They will lead us to our doom. Sarah snapped, yet inside her heart waged war. The need to help battled viciously against the instinct to flee. Could she risk everything on a voice, on an uncertain chance of salvation? The shadows pressed tighter, thick and suffocating, and the laughter. The woman in the corner grinned, eyes glinting with a malevolence that sent Sarah back against the counter, breath quickening. Do you truly think you have the strength to fight? The darkness taunted. You are nothing without despair. Embrace it. With her heart racing and the shadows closing in, Sarah flicked her eyes to the doorway. There was no going back now. If we're going to save anyone, we do it together, she said, summoning every ounce of courage. We go toward that voice, but we do it as a family. Mom, please. Her youngest whimpered, clinging desperately to her leg. It's our only choice. She shouted, before bolting towards the room's entrance. The shadows howled in fury, and she could feel them rushing at her, dozens of cold wisps clawing at her. With the knife raised, she surged forward into the chaotic darkness, the children behind her, hearts thudding in their chests. As they crossed the threshold, a blinding light exploded in front of them, illuminating the shadows writhing in agony, shrieking as if the light was a burning flame. Help us. Don't leave us behind. The voice cried, closer now, a mixture of anguish and hope. Sarah hesitated, the brightness searing but illuminating a hazy figure clawing at an unseen barrier, twisting amongst the shadows. Who was it? A friend? An enemy? Just then, the ground shook violently, and the walls began to crack with unholy anger. They had crossed a line. "Sarah! Look out!" Her son screamed, pointing, but it was too late. The house roared in fury, and in a flash, darkness swallowed them whole. Where were they? What would be their fate now? As silence returned, the lingering echoes of the plea hung heavy in the air, a haunting reminder that choice had been made. And in that moment, Sarah wondered if the truth lay ahead or something much worse. They landed hard on a cold, unforgiving surface. Sarah gasped, the air abruptly knocked from her lungs. The children tumbled beside her, their cries barely a whisper in the deepening void. Her eyes struggled to adjust to the dim shadows slowly coating their surroundings. "Mom?" Her youngest's voice broke the heavy silence, fear etched across his tiny face. She scanned the area, heart racing. It felt as if something was watching, lurking just past her line of sight. She lifted her knife, holding it protectively in front of her, an act of defiance against whatever horrors awaited in this dark realm. "Stay close," she urged, her voice trembling, the echo seeming to hang in the air longer than it should have. The shadows wrapped around them like a living thing, thick and sentient, pulsating with an unnerving energy. The light they had passed through flickered behind them, a faint memory against the oppressive darkness. What was that place? Her oldest whispered, staring wide-eyed at the shadowy walls that seemed to pulse and breathe. "I don't know," Sarah admitted, anxiety clawing at her insides. "But we have to keep moving." As they stepped cautiously forward, the ground beneath them felt surreal, sinking, shifting like quicksand. Every step released a guilty scrape, as if the very earth was crying out for their intrusion. And then, a sickening feeling washed over Sarah, a foreboding that swelled, filling the hollow space where courage once stood. "Mom! Look!" Her son pointed to a shape looming at the far end of their vision, emerging from the murky blackness. While her instincts screamed to flee, Sarah found herself rooted in place, an icy tendril of fear tightening around her heart. As they drew closer, the figure sharpened into focus. It was a woman, hair wild and unkempt, her clothes tattered and filthy. She was staring into the void, eyes hollow, almost goblin-like in their sunken despair. "Help me!" she rasped, voice trembling like brittle glass. "You mustn't stay here." "Who are you?" Sarah demanded, the knife still poised protectively in front of her. "She's lying," the woman in the shadows said slyly, suddenly close enough for Sarah to see the malevolence curling in her smile. "They will devour you, like they did me." Terror rocketed through Sarah as the shadows squirmed closer, creeping along the ground, sentient and hungry. We can't let them win," she rasped, her grip tightening on the knife. "What do we do?" her oldest asked, his voice cracking, eyes darting between the two women. "Follow me." The tattered woman beckoned, her hands stretching out, fingers clawing as if the shadows sought to pull her back. "No. Don't trust her," Sarah shouted, but doubt began to worm its way through her mind. What if she was wrong? What if, in this place, there was no right choice? The flickering light from behind began to fade. It was a race against time, the walls actually convulsing, writhing. The shadows laughed softly, a cavernous chuckle that chilled Sarah to the bone. "Let the real death begin," they whispered, closing in around them. "We can't stay here," Sarah yelled, making a split decision. Gripping her children tightly, she propelled herself away from the thieving shadows and toward the disheveled figure. "Follow!" she roared, adrenaline pounding through her veins in a desperate rhythm. "What's behind her?" her son asked, voice shaking as they rushed closer. Dark shapes loomed, coiling almost like serpents ready to strike. With every step toward the woman, the shadows shrieked, their threats intertwining with her own growing fear. The darkness pressed against them, pulling, squeezing. But just as they reached for the woman's claws, she screamed, a sound drenched in anguish. "No! You don't understand what she's done. She will. The ground split beneath them, dark tendrils shooting up, grasping at her children. Run! Sarah screamed, just as the abyss erupted outward, a black mouth ready to consume them. They bolted, heartbeats foaming like waves crashing against shores of terror. But the voice from the shadows beckoned again, echoing between them, persistent and twisted. Join us. Surrender. Deadly silence knitted itself into the air. Time slowed, possibilities hanging like flickering lights dimming into the night. Where would they land next? What was waiting for them in this seething darkness? The shadows surged forward, choking the air, as an inexplicable force chained Sarah to the ground. Her heart raced, pumping adrenaline through her veins as icy hands brushed her skin. Run! She screamed again, but the weight of despair pressed down, suffocating. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted around them, slicing through the darkness like a knife through flesh. The shadows recoiled, shrieking, retreating as if burnt by the light's radiance. That's it. She thought, her resolve hardening. The light. Mom! Her oldest yelled, gripping her arm tightly. We need to move now. With renewed determination, she yanked her children toward the light, an ethereal glow shimmering ahead. The darkness twisted and writhed around them, but the light pushed all fears aside, guiding them forward. Stick together. Sarah commanded, adrenaline firing her movements as they raced toward the beacon of safety. Close your eyes. She shouted, squeezing her kids' hands tight, feeling their small bodies quake with fear. As they approached, the amalgam of darkness began to spasm, shadows shooting toward them like whips, seeking to snatch them back. I want to let go. She insisted, teeth gritted. The light grew brighter, forming a churning vortex, a tunnel leading into clarity and warmth. Mom, look out! Her daughter screamed, eyes wide with terror. A shadow lunged, twisting through the air toward Sarah. It was almost there. No! She roared, raising the knife in defiance. With a surge of energy, she plunged it toward the shadow, a desperate thrust laced with every ounce of love and courage. The knife impacted, and an explosion of light erupted, setting off a shimmering shockwave that blasted forth. They were enveloped in brilliance as the shadows disintegrated into a flurry of dust, the air around them transforming. Sarah felt the warmth wash over her like a blanket, wrapping around them as they were flung into the light, leaving the darkness whimpering behind. Hold on. She warned, squeezing her children tighter as they sailed through the tunnel of radiance. Moments feathered into instants, and as quickly as it began, they tumbled out, landing back into their living room. Only this time, sunlight flooded through the windows, illuminating everything with a warm embrace. Is it over? Her eldest whispered, eyes darting around as if expecting the shadows to reappear. Sarah looked at her children, their faces filled with uncertainty, then down at her own trembling hands that had once borne a weapon of protection. I think we did it, she breathed, tears straining against her resolve. The shadows had melted away, but the frightful memories lingered like echoes within the walls. Stepping forward, they could almost hear the whispers fade, swallowed by the hum of ordinary life. Letting out a shaky breath, Sarah felt exhaustion crash against her, the weight of her ordeal threatening to drag her down. But beyond the disorientation, there was a semblance of peace, a reminder that they had faced their nightmarish fears and emerged alive. Let us never go near that school again, her daughter said, her voice steady despite the earlier horror. Agreed, Sarah nodded, forcing a smile while holding her children close. We stay together, that's what matters. Can we play outside? Her youngest asked, trying to break the remnants of fear painting their minds. Absolutely, Sarah laughed softly, the brightness of the sun illuminating her morals. Let us enjoy today. As they stepped outside, the neighborhood seemed anew. Children played, laughter chimed, and the sun poured down like a golden promise. But in the back of her mind lingered a flicker of unease. While darkness may have lost this round, shadows always existed, lurking. Ready to send those whispers back. she said under her breath, looking around her, a newfound strength blossoming against a world ringing with life. Together, they ran toward the sunlit swings, finally free and determined to embrace every moment life had to offer. After all, in every choice, shadows and light danced together, a fragile balance only they could maintain. As laughter echoed behind her, Sarah smiled, knowing she'd do it all over again to protect her family and keep despair at bay. But would the shadows ever truly flee? Your choice shapes your family's path, but remember, never disregard the whispers. They might just lead to unexpected truths. Now, before this moment fades, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let everyone know what you've just experienced. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What do you think really happened? And don't wait even one more second to share this video. Share it with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.